Reports of COVID-19 PPE tender irregularities involving government officials have surfaced in the past few days. On his last address to the nation, President Cyril Ramphosa announced that the establishment of a government center that will investigate and prosecute COVID-19 related corruption. Well, let's take this discussion further. We're joined via Skype by political analyst Xolani Dube. Mr. Dube, thank you so much for giving us your time here on SABC News.
Thanks a lot, and also let me humble myself to you as well as to your viewers at home.
Well, you know, who would have thought that government officials, that people who are given this mandate to take care of us, take care of the nation, would find ways and means to, you know, dip their hands in the cookie jar at a time that we're dealing with a pandemic, when nobody knows what's happening, when we all really need to come together and get the assistance of government officials. What are your thoughts on this sort of this corruption that is specifically linked to COVID-19, where, you know, people are sick, some are dying, and yet there is time to find ways to be corrupt? What are your thoughts?
Look, I think there's nothing that you have to expect from the incumbent government, because you will understand the ascendancy of our president into the office. He ascended into an office being alleged to have committed some of the most horrible crime in our country. You remember the Marikana issue. And also, you remember that that NASREC conference was entangled in controversy, how money played a very important role in terms of him to emerge as the president of the country. I think that how the bar was lowered, and that how the ANC and our country was poisoned around the importance of money. And so what you are seeing today, those are kind of the consequences of us as South Africans, and those who were in the civil society who were having a forked tongue when the President Ramaphosa was being let loose to behave the way he wanted. And so now I think we are reaping the fruit. And so for us to blame the civil servant and then we don't look at the head to a certain extent, that is kind of being not really being honest with our analysis.
Mr. Dube, is there a seriousness really from the president's part, perhaps, to kind of at least hide that there is some kind of corruption happening, you know, within his ranks, within those that are working in his time as president? We've heard him announcing that there is an establishment of a government center that will investigate and prosecute COVID-19 related corruption. Do you see this really as just another talk shop, and that, you know, afterwards and throughout we'll continue to see the kind of corruption we've been exposed to?
Look, there was a Zondo commission that all of us as South African had such a very high expectation, but at the end of the day, we could see through that Zondo commission was used as a weapon against those who were decorated as the villains in our society. And now, when the Zondo Commission is starting to be undressed and to be seen as a commission that, to a certain extent, is taking us to the heart of darkness of how rot is entrenched in the ANC, and now people are starting again to have forked tongue around the issue of Zondo Commission. In 2 weeks back, remember that one of the ministers that South Africans really trusted, Mr. Pravin Gordhan, he told us a very interesting concept, that there are corruption that are not criminal. And so such kind of language, and now we have this COVID, I don't know what we call it. I don't think that really we need to have so much trust on what currently the government is telling us on how to combat corruption in our country.
You know, I was chatting to a political analyst, Dr. Breakfast, just before I spoke to you in the last hour. And he was saying, you know, although the people who are suffering the most, that will suffer the most due to this pandemic, the ones that need the resources the most and the vulnerable in our country, in our societies, they will go back to the ballots and continue to vote for these leaders who have really shown themselves and what they are during a time of the pandemic. Do you think the same, or do you think that South Africans will sort of remember when it's time to vote and punish at the polls? What is your analysis as we sort of go into that election year, and it will be fresh in our minds, you know, the kind of corruption that we were exposed to during COVID-19, surely?
Look, let me tell you something. South Africans are political conscious, especially those who are poor now. They can see through what is happening in our country, that they are being taken for a ride. The silence of the SACP, the silence of COSATU, it shows that they've forsaken their responsible role as the vanguard of the poor, as the vanguard of the workers. And so the workers are aware that, look, black men in South Africa, we are on your own. And now I can assure you, they are going to act, and they are going to act decisively. And if you look at the past election trends, the national trends when it comes to election as well as in the local government, the poor are starting to talk. And so it's very naive to think that black people who are being to a certain extent being exploited by the black elite in the ANC and docile are people who are still going to be the prisoner of the historical sentiments of our liberation struggle. People are no longer in prison. People have started to say they are going to break those walls and they are going to chart their way forward. What is said, as you can see in Cape Town, we are going to have an uncontrollable violence, uncontrollable havoc in our country, because people have lost confidence in our president. And our president has got no more moral authority to the South African citizen. His forked tongue, the way he is communicating the issue of COVID is clear. To his side, he is supporting when it comes to the issues of COVID in our country. He's on the side of the elite. He's on the side of the so-called minerals energy complex. He has forsaken his role to be the protector of the condemned and the vulnerable in our country. And so the condemned and the vulnerable, they are going to rise. And I can assure you, the beauty that you see in our country is going to turn into ashes.
Mr. Dube, you know, what boggles the mind is that the people who are in government now were in government anyway, even in the past administration. Why would people have thought that there would have really been a huge change within the government, given the fact that, I mean, you mentioned the president was the vice president before. Why did people think that there would have been this huge shift in terms of attitude and the goings on within the ANC, within the organization?
We have to understand the power of media, and you have to understand the issue of scapegoating. That Jacob Zuma was used as a scapegoat, and he was used to mobilize on behalf of Cyril, our new messiah, inverted commas. But now people have seen that even the media, it can be a very poisonous tool in terms of indoctrinating them. And that's why when you look recently, people are starting to shy away from the media because they can see that the media is not playing an innocent role of being the guardian, of being the guard of the guardians. And so that's why I'm saying, come 2024, come 2021, the people are going to undress, are going to unpeel the reality that has been covering the government of Cyril Ramphosa. As you can see, the COVID also is starting to unpeel him. It's starting to tell us who is this man in a true sense? And now people are going to make a decision. And so it's up to the ANC to decide if they still want to be in government or not, by going back to their historical mandate of being the vanguard and the voice and the protector of the poor. If they're not going to do that, I can assure you, the ANC will see their power evaporating in the government corridors.
All right, Mr. Xolani Dube, thank you so very much for that great analysis. That's a political analyst, Mr. Xolani Dube. Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot.